Hello and welcome to today's episode. Today we are joined by the lovely JoJo Kearney of Thrive with JoJo. She is an online business and mindset mentor, and during the episode we chatted about her journey from where she started as a PT to evolving her business now to be helping people to love their business. We talked about loving your business and things that you can do to help you on that journey, and she also shared some tips on boundaries which were brilliant. So let's get into the episode. Hi, I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Dan, and welcome to our podcast,
where we talk to real people about real problems in real situations.
Grab a cuppa while we talk founder life. Hi Jo, thank you for joining us. Normally we start just by you telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Hello, thank you first of all for having me here. It's very nice to see your lovely faces. I am...
That doesn't get you anywhere on here, by the way.
Damn it. It meant you'd go easy on me on questions. I am an online business and mindset mentor. So I help mainly small businesses, online coaches, anyone that's a service-based, in the service-based industry. I help them just build businesses that they're in love with, without the burnout, without the crap that comes with it. So that's who I am.
Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about how you got to there.
I feel like we're gonna need 8 hours, so I'll try and keep it short.
I'll get a sleeping bag.
Yeah. Edit out all the crap. But I guess so at the start of my journey, I started as a PT on the gym floor, pretty much straight out of, I obviously went through school, tried to be a dancer for 5 minutes, didn't work out, was not a fan, went to uni for about 3 months and then sacked it off. And then I found fitness. I found kind of just working on my appearance, which looking back, however many years, 8, 9, 10 years later, oh my God, wait, I'm 27. So yeah, 10, maybe 11 years later, I really slowly learned that I actually don't care about fitness at all. Like, I don't care about getting fit. But the thing that I loved about when I kind of entered this PT world, I started off just going to classes, going to a PT, loving it. And then he's kind of said to me, he was like, you'd be really good at this as a job. And I was like, I would be really good at it as a job. And so I did my PT qualification, went through all of that, started at a gym and just started doing classes with people. And the thing that I loved about that was just helping everybody feel so good. And I think that's something that a lot of people find fitness for, is just how good it makes you feel. And then when the kind of progression that you go from just being a person who does the classes or who has the PT to the person who is the PT or runs the classes, is like, you just love creating that atmosphere for everybody else. You love how good everybody else feels as a result of you doing what you do. And so that's what I really loved about personal training. And I'll be honest, I'll toot my trumpet, I was really good at it. I was really good at making people feel great about themselves, show up for themselves, do the things that made them feel amazing in their body and in their mindset. And so I moved online just before the online world really kicked off. It was maybe a year or two before COVID. Are we allowed to say COVID on the podcast?
No, unfortunately not.
Well, I don't know. But just before those,
you can swear though.
Yeah. Okay. I moved into the online space because I'd gotten to a point in my business where I built it up as much as I could. I was trading a lot of time for money, which you do on the gym floor. You see one person and that's the payment for the hour, and you're working by the hour. And so I needed to find a way of continuing to build my business, but also serve more people. And I think that was the main driver for me to go online, is I couldn't help any more people than the one-to-one that I was helping. And so I went online, which just freed up a lot more of my time, built that really quickly, found a bit more of like an online presence where that sort of community of everybody coming in, watching your stuff, loving what you're doing, and loving the message you've got to share. That for me was just like, again, another real big driver for me, is like, I want to be able to share this with more people. And then last year, and I say last year, but I've been doing it secretly since like 2018. Other business owners were seeing what I was doing and asking me questions about it and saying, how are you building this business? How are you doing so well? How do you do it? Blah, blah, blah. And so I was kind of coaching people on the side secretly without sharing it to the world, helping them grow their business and helping them do just more with the business they've got. And then over the last 2 years, really, I just realized that I was not in love with what I was doing. I wasn't in love with helping other people get smaller to feel better. It just didn't sit right with me anymore. And I feel like I kind of grew out of that, not grew out of, but just evolved from the person who just cared about her body in any way. Like, it's just, to me, it just became, instead of it being the main driver of my life, it was just like, oh, it's just this thing that I carry around with me whilst I do all the things that I want to do in life. And so I'd kind of moved out of caring so much about losing weight or, being fit or whatever. And I realized that so much about the changes I was helping people make were mindset. And I'm a big mindset bunny. I've done so much work on, I could turn my computer around and you can see all the books that I've got on the side because I'm just a big mindset junkie. And so I started to move into mindset and I let my kind of business evolve with that. And then again, I just kind of realized, you know what? I love helping people with their mindset, but I'm loving so much more helping the businesses that I was working with at the time, the one-man band queens that I was working with at the time. I loved helping them share their message to other people. And so later last year, so in October time, I'd been battling between these two sides of my business. And I was like, this one's doing really well. The fat loss, the mindset, it's doing really well, but I'm not in love with it anymore. And I think that's such a problem for the longevity of your business. If you want it to be sustainable, if you want to take it long time, if you want to be doing it in 10 years time, you've got to love it to some extent. You can't wake up resenting it every day. You can't wake up with burnout. And I was just in such a rut with where I was in my business that I just decided, you know what, I'm going to allow it to burn to the ground and build the thing that I'm really in love with. And that's where we are today. I help businesses build a business that they are in love with so that they don't get to the point that I got to where they resented it and they hate it and they're, boobs deep in burnout, hating every second of waking up and running the thing that they were in love with, which is, why we create business in the first place, right? So that's where we are now.
I love it. And I've seen part of your journey as well. And the way you talk now, you're so passionate and you can tell you love what you do. It's so obvious. And that is such an important thing as a business owner, isn't it? Yeah. And do you know what? I think that shines through and builds a better business. Yeah. And I say this to my clients all the time. I do a lot of work with people on how to kind of share your message on Instagram, how to build your business through Instagram. And so much of it is like, you could have the perfect content strategy. You could have the perfect business model. You could have, I don't know, the best program or course or service that ever existed. But if you aren't completely behind it, if you aren't standing up for it and really shouting about your message, no one's going to hear it anyway. And so if you're behind it and if you're like the passion and the energy behind those things, the content strategy, the business model, the reason you created the program or whatever it is in the first place, it's like, that's the thing that sells the program. And I know that since making this shift, so many people have kind of come out into my DMs and said, wow, like you can tell how much it lights you up. And I've had more people sign up with me, more sales, more kind of even conversations off the back of that energy and that purpose and that passion. Do you know what I mean? Off the back of that just fire than anything, any other strategy could have given me. And I think that's such an important reason why I do couple that strategy with the mindset and the energy behind it, because without that, everything else lands flat anyway. So yeah, I think it's really important.
It's interesting. You said you from what you said there, you said a couple of times, I shifted from this to this. And the first shift you said you did was from PTing on the floor to going online to reaching more people. Obviously shifting is quite a scary and intimidating, I suppose, as well thing to do. So tell us a little bit about how you found that and how you dealt with those shifts.
Yeah, I mean, some moves were easier than others. So the shift from PT to online, breezy. I knew that it would be, it's a very similar thing. You're just doing it, for different people or in a different setting. Yeah. I think the shift in, it's supposed to be niche, but sorry, I'm not going to call it niche. The shift in niche that I made, that's the scary thing, I think, when you really start to lean into a message that you want to share that's maybe different from what it used to be, or lean into a business or setup that's different from what it used to be. It's the change, I think, that's the really scary part. And I think a lot of imposter syndrome comes in, a lot of self-doubt and fear of judgment comes in with it, where you go, God, I don't know. Like when I think the big thing was when I moved from the fat loss business to business coaching, that for me, that's why I didn't do it for so long in public, because I was like, I've got to prove to other people that I deserve to be earning a living doing this thing. And that's where I don't know why October sticks in my head, but it's that October where I just kind of created a podcast too. I had a really successful podcast that was all around fat loss and mindset. It reached #1 in the UK for fitness. It was like, it was a big deal for me to have something like that, a platform where I could share my message that I was sharing, and to suddenly say, by the way, I'm not going to do that anymore. That was really scary, because I felt like not only am I making a big life change for me, that I don't know what the outcome of that could be. Is it failure? Is it going to pay off for me? But also the fear of letting everybody down that made you who you are at that point, that believed in your business, that supported your business, that likes the freaking post on Instagram. Do you know what I mean? All the people that are there for the message you were sharing. As soon as you change and do something slightly different, you've got to be okay with the fact that not everybody's going to be okay with that, and that's okay. And I think that was one thing I struggled with, is I didn't want to let people down that I had helped in the past, and I didn't want any judgment for that. I didn't want anybody to say she shouldn't be doing this, she shouldn't be, I don't know, a business coach, she shouldn't be telling other people, like, just because she's built her own business doesn't mean she can replicate that for others. And I think I just had to get past that and just say, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm allowed to evolve. I'm allowed to change. I'm allowed to grow. And I think if you're not changing and tweaking things as you grow in your business, you're doing something wrong anyway, or you're stopping yourself from progressing even further. And I think that's the key, is being able to evolve and grow, let go of the limiting beliefs, the judgments, all of the stuff that is holding you back, and just say, do you know what, I'm going to do it. And it's an either win or learn moment, not a failure or success. I think that's the key, is treating every little moment or every little move you make as just a opportunity to learn for the next time and the next time and the next time.
Oh, it definitely does. And I think a lot of people probably feel they need to change and tweak, but are scared to, because they don't want to, they see it as failure, or they see it as it's not a good thing. But actually changing and tweaking and actually growing with your business is a mark of success, really, because you're recognizing things aren't right, and you're changing it for the better, aren't you?
People that don't change and stick to if you look at companies and go back into the past, companies that don't adapt, don't change, actually end up dying. Wow. And the worst is probably the worst example, because we've moved on so far from it. But the only one that pops into my head right now is actually Blockbuster.
Mine as well.
They had the opportunity to do something with Netflix. They said, no, that's never going to be the future. Ever will it be the future? And now they don't exist. So
I didn't know that. I mean, I'll be honest, Blockbuster's a little bit before my time, but I feel
maybe
you're not that much younger than me.
I think that's it. I think if you're not growing with the times, like you said, you're not kind of progressing with the way that the world is. And obviously a really good example of that is COVID, is when, lockdown hit and businesses had to massively evolve. And I think that's where I was ahead of the game a little bit, because I was already online. So for me, my business didn't change. I mean, I had to write a lot of home workout programs in that week, but largely my business could stay running the same thing. A lot of people had to evolve with that. And if you didn't, you were left behind. And I think the same is true in the world anyway. Every year that we kind of go through, something else happens where you've got to evolve and shift. But especially if you're in the online business space, like the way you market changes every bloody day anyway, with Instagram and all the different platforms that you know, if you want to promote yourself on a certain platform, it's like you've got to keep up with what's going on constantly. And you've got to do it in a way that's authentic to you, because especially with things like Instagram, right? If I jump on a trend, like there's trends that pop up all the time. If I jump on a trend and I don't feel good about it, A, I'm not going to show up for that trend, but B, you're going to see it in my content. And so you're going to see it in my marketing, and then people aren't going to sign up with you. And so I think everything that you do, as long as you're going back to, I think you talk about it all the time, Cheryl, but values, going back to your purpose and what you are here to say, then I think if you can tie that with the way that the world changes every so often, or the way that even you change as an individual, if you can marry those things together, then you've got a long-term business that will thrive, as long as you are constantly shifting and evolving with it.
Yeah. It's adapt or die, isn't it, really?
It definitely is. And you talked about, obviously, you work on mindset as well. And some of the key things that I love hearing you say and talk about is loving yourself, loving your business, and you are okay, and all those things. And I absolutely love that. And that's not a message that many people share. But why do you think it's important that people need to share that message?
I think largely for me, I know if I'm not showing up for myself, then my business suffers. And I think I learned that very quickly is the way that I treat myself reflects on the way that my clients are. And I think anybody who serves clients to some capacity, you'll probably notice that, like, if you're having a bit of a slump few weeks, you tend to not get inquiries, or your clients are always a little bit the same. You kind of go, God, there must be something in the air. And it's actually, it's in your air. Do you know what I mean? It's in your space, in your kind of, I call it my world, like my people that are in my world. It's like, I know if I'm going through it, other people are as well. And I think there's a big kind of common humanity part of it, which is something that we speak about with self-compassion, of being able to kind of say, it's okay, like the world's going through it as well. It's not just me. I'm not alone in this. But I think if you can show yourself more love and more appreciation, more celebration, you want to show up for yourself more, and you want to show up for your business more. And I think the amount of times when I would beat myself up for something that I'd done wrong, we spoke about perfectionism before we started the podcast episode, but you know, your perfectionism, your self-criticism, your self-doubt, all of those things really feed into your business. And if you're not able to shift those beliefs and shift just the crap that you say to yourself, and if you send, like we were saying, if you send an email to someone and it's got a spelling error in it, I would spend weeks like beating myself up for that. And when you're beating yourself up, you're not moving. You're not doing the things. You're not showing up. You're not marketing. You're not building the business. You're not working on the project in the background. You're not wanting to go on a call for your clients because you're too busy being annoyed at the last client that you accidentally said something to that you shouldn't have said. You know, if you're constantly beating yourself up for things or being unkind to yourself, you can't show up as your best self for the people that you serve. And for service-based businesses, like that's the whole point. We're here to serve others. We're here to do things to help other people in some way. And you can't help other people if you're not first making sure, you know what they say, put your own oxygen mask on before other people's, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. It's so easy not to do that in our businesses. We're like, no, I've got to do all the things. We so easily fall into that burnout of trying to focus on the idea of success and the how can I kind of get more money in, or how can I do more things, or how can I grow as fast as possible, that we forget that we kind of neglect ourselves and we don't really show up for ourselves first, which I think is the main driver of how you show up for other people anyway. So I think you've got to be kind to yourself. I'm not going to say love yourself, because again, as I've evolved, I've realized, like, yes, we want to love ourselves. That's the end goal, but we're not always going to, and that's got to be okay. Yep. So treating yourself with compassion, whether you love yourself or not, I think is a really, really important part of business that, like you said, nobody talks about. And that's why I'm here. I'm like, let me shout about it.
No, I love it. And it's definitely helped me as well in my journey with my mindset. It really has. And it's lovely seeing other people have that energy that you've got and seeing it shine in them. And then you're like, oh, yeah, that's where I want to be. And it helps them on their journey, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I think you're so right. Like, you just see it in people. It's like, I always say, one of my favorite things is like watching people talk about stuff that they're really excited about. And it's like, I don't care if I have not, someone could be talking about, I'm going to butcher it, neuroscience, or someone could be talking about freaking aeroplanes. I was like, we were watching a home video with my granddad the other week, and he has like all these, he's got loads of B-roll in his, like in his home videos, which is just so adorable. But he's like scrolling past flowers and being like, that's whatever the flower's called. And then he'll tell you a few things about a flower. And I'm like, just the way that people speak when they're excited about something, or when they really are so interested, like when they're geeking out on it, that to me is like, I could watch that for hours. And let me buy your flower, sir. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, let me buy that product, because wow, like, you're so excited about it. And I think if you are so behind your business that like nothing's going to stop you talking about it, you'll get so much more business than the person who's talking about the things they think they should be talking about because it's the boring stuff people should know, right?
Yeah. No, it's so true. It's like the same when I talk to my 13-year-old. He talks to him about school or anything like that. And we had the conversation once with his teacher, like, he's not very interested, he's very quiet and that. I said, yeah, but you ask him to talk about Formula One and you cannot shut the kid up. But
what grow up to be a freaking engineer for the Formula One cars? Or do you know what I mean? It's like that there's space for everybody to do something they love. And I think that's the thing. If you can find that and charge for it, because why not? Like, you've got a business that lasts a lifetime and that gets to evolve with it. So I saw someone on TikTok, she's making millions now by selling like how to use Excel or like Excel spreadsheets. And I'm like, love that. Love it. I'm a bit of an admin queen and things like that. But it's like, if someone tells me I can't do that, I could never earn money doing it, I'm like, yeah, you can. Like, you can earn money doing whatever you want to do. I think the key is finding the thing that you are completely in love with, or that really sets your soul on fire, and couple that with what people need, and then you sell it by what people want. So you get them in with what they want to hear, you sell them what they need, and then you teach what you love. That if you're doing that, like, you could go so far in your business as long as you've got that energy behind it. And again, you know, I think that's the main driver is just being able to want to show up for your business daily.
There's a lot of there's a lot of people that don't want to, and there's a lot of people that don't have the, I think, you know, you talk about, for me, there's quite a strong desire for me to help people, and I like to help people in what I do, and because of that, I'll probably do things that a lot of other people that do what I do don't do for their clients, because I just genuinely always want to help. And that's, yeah, as you say, that's exactly the same, isn't it? That's the passion. I enjoy what I do, so I want to help people, and yeah, makes a massive difference.
And you know what? I feel like that's where people pleasing can be really tricky, especially if you love doing what you're doing, you love helping people, you love seeing them get the breakthroughs and things like that. You want to be an over deliverer. You're like, no, let me give you all the things. And that's how easy it is to lead to burnout, because you're constantly over delivering. You want to stay up until midnight doing the thing that's going to, you know, sending the email to the client, or doing the proposal, or whatever it is. You want to do those things because you're so in love with it. And that's where the fine line is between people pleasing and that kind of over delivery of just wanting to help someone so much that you burn yourself out in the process. And that's where we go back to what you were saying about the loving yourself and even just the self-respect and giving yourself clear enough boundaries that, like, you won't ever overstep that at the expense of yourself. However, that's what does grow your business more, because you will do the stuff that other people won't do, because they'll be like, oh, I'm not doing that today, but you want to do it. And I think that's the key, is being able to show up for your business when you can, and not overstep any boundaries or any sort of I don't know, the people pleaser tendencies within us to be able to actually continue doing it for the long term rather than burn yourself into the ground and, you know, cry every night before you go to bed because you've got so much on your plate.
There's an interesting thing you said there about like staying up until midnight sending an email. So I have a perspective over this, but be interested, is it obviously for what you do, be interesting to say, get your view on it. If you receive an email from someone and you look at it the next day and it's got midnight on it, or 1 a.m, or 3 a.m, what's your perspective? What do you think when you say that?
It totally depends. Excuse me, still very poorly. The first thing, I feel like it depends who it is, because if it's someone that I know is really excited about something, I've got a couple of clients going through a launch process at the moment. So they've found something they really want to teach, and they're going through the launch of like getting the email set up, getting the sales page, that sort of stuff. So I know that those people are going to be busy bunnies working on that in the evenings because they can't stop thinking about it before they go to bed. They're like, let me just do this because I'm so excited. Mm-hmm. My perspective on like time boundaries, I say to my clients, you message me whenever. You can message me at midnight. You can message me at 3. You can message me at 7 a.m. I won't be up and I won't see it, but you can message me whenever you like. I will get back to it whenever I get back to it. And so I think that's the clear boundary that I set, is like, you do you can send me things, you can dump things into my WhatsApps 24/7. I will always get back to it when I when I'm working or in my working hours or when I can. And so I think setting the clear boundaries is really important. If I said to them, you can only message me between this time and this time, then they would message me between this time and this time. If somebody doesn't, I probably won't get butthurt about it anymore. I might have had a little moan about it to my partner and been like, I can't believe she messaged me at 3 a.m. That was because I resented my business because of how I'd created it. I hadn't taken on clients that really were my people. I'd taken on clients because they said yes, which I think is really important. And I think when you've got your dreamy clients, your perfect clients, the clients that are right for you, they will respect the hell out of your time boundaries. They will, if they send me a message at 3 a.m, usually it's got title, do not open until you're back, or do not open, or leave it till tomorrow. And I think I make sure to always do that for my people as well. So I think it's just a back and forth. It's like, if they message me at 3, I'm like, you do you, hun. If you're working at 3 a.m, good for you. I will get back to it at 9 when I'm working. But if someone messages me at 8 p.m. and they're stressing about something, I'm very lenient with, like, if I can see that they're really going through it, I'll probably message them back. But I definitely keep my my boundaries very clear, and people tend to respect it. What are your thoughts on it?
So my thoughts are interesting. So for my clients, I don't care what time of day they email me. I'm quite happy for them to do that any time of day, and I will respond as soon as reasonably possible. Yeah. So if I am sitting doing things at night, I will reply. If I'm not, I won't. If it's providers or something different or external, it drives me mad.
Why?
I don't know. Maybe it's just because I feel like they should be doing something else.
Do you think some of it is like, if someone, so say, I kind of feel like if you're talking about providers and stuff, maybe it's someone that's giving you a service or someone that's doing something for you.
Yeah.
Do you have that kind of mindset of like, you should have done this at 2 p.m, not thrown it together at midnight? Or is it literally just get a life and do something different?
Well, 9 times out of 10, when it's I just think that things should take time and care, and you live your values. So, i.e., if I've got the opportunity, so this if I suppose the best example that I'm thinking of is over the weekend I went away from Friday afternoon till Monday morning. I didn't pick up my phone. But when I get emails from providers and things that are half rushed, copy and paste hack jobs, and sent across, and not right.
That's it. So it's not the time, it's the care. And I think that's where, like, again, it's down to those boundaries, those values of, like, you really put so much time and energy into what you do that if someone else doesn't, that grates on you. That's like, why can't other people do that? Do you know what I mean? So I guess it's probably not so much about the actual time frame of when it's sent, but more so about the fact that you know deep down that they've just chucked it together and not taken the time to actually care about what they're doing.
Mm.
I think you're right there, Joe. And that winds me up as well.
I'll leave.
See you later.
Yeah, we're ganging up on you now. But no, I get it though. It is frustrating. And it's
perspective on it, because it's that, you know, you spoke a lot about values and you know, not loving yourself, but, you know, liking yourself and that type of thing. Yeah.
I guess the issue is if you then feel you need to reply at those times, because that's the issue that I had. And I remember, I think it was pre-COVID or maybe in the middle of COVID, and I was getting messages all times of the day or night. And I would be waking up at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning to check my emails to reply to people. And I was just like, I caught myself doing it one morning. I'm like, what on earth am I doing? So that day I took my emails off my phone and started setting some boundaries. And another thing I did was stop giving my mobile number out so people couldn't text me. So it all had to come in an email. Because that was the other thing as well. They'd send all these messages in different formats and I would like, I don't know what I've got where. It wasn't all in one place, so direct it in. And the change that had on my mindset and my boundaries as well, it made me stick to my boundaries. And then that just made me feel so much better. And I was like, oh, like my business again now.
Exactly. Like, who knew that you could be the one to enforce those things? I think it's so easy for us to let our businesses run us and let our clients and our customers and let someone that isn't running our business run us. And then because we're in the service-based industry, let's be quite frank, we're perfectionists, we're people pleasers, we love external validation. Like, that's the gig you get if you're an online business owner, 100%. And so It's so easy to want to do all those things where you reply because someone replied to you and you feel like you should and you feel like you have to. And that's where we can do so much work on, again, creating those boundaries, but also working on like our self-worth not being needed by that external validation of someone saying, wow, she's so responsive. It's like, as soon as I dropped though the need to be constantly on hand for other people, the more I found that if I said, I'm going to take a week off work, my clients would be like, thank goodness, it's been a good couple of months since you've done that. I'm not even going to like message you at all. I don't want to see you on social media. I don't want to see you on your phone. Go away and enjoy it. And I would have never had that back, you know, a couple of years ago when I was burning myself out, working constantly. It's like I would be mortified about taking time off. I wouldn't do it. I would take my laptop on holiday, or I would, you know, say no to going to the hen do because I just had too much going on. And I think it goes back to picking the right people to come into your business and being able to set really clear expectations from day one. And that's why things like you've got a welcome pack, Cheryl, that's straight away, it's like our expectations of you, your expectations for us, what we stand for, what our values are, what our boundaries are, and how we can work best together. And then it becomes a partnership rather than it being, here's what you're going to do. If you don't do it, I'm going to sack you off. It's more so like, how can we make this work between us in the best way that works for us both? I think that's really important.
Just a quick shout out to our sponsors, Xero, who in my opinion are the best accounting software out there for small business owners. One of the features that is amazing is the fact that the software is online, meaning you can access this anytime, any place, from any device, meaning that you don't have to rely on it being on one spec computer. Check out Xero today at xero.com. That's Xero with an X, Xero.com.
How do you so without putting you too much on the spot and without forcing you down a route that you good people have to pay for, is there any kind of quick tips that you'll do for putting those boundaries in place? Because I think Cheryl and her team are good at it. i.e. when you email in, you get that automatic reply that kind of sets their expectations up straight away, so you know what to expect. Is there a couple of quick tips you give to people to do that?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to being able to set the boundaries from day one. So the people that are coming into your world, so new customers, new clients, those sorts of people, those are the people you get to do it fast with. Because let's be honest, the people that you've already got in your world, if you suck at setting boundaries, or if you're not very good at saying no, or what, if you constantly overstep your comfort or your safety, then those people aren't going to suddenly say, no, actually, do you know what? I'm going to respect her. So you've got to communicate that to your people. So communication is always key. Doing it with new people first is way less scary, because you don't have to confront the people that have been overstepping your boundaries for so long and say, hey, by the way, I don't love that this is the way that my business is running. I'm going to change it, and you have to abide by the new rules or whatever. So the new people are the first ones that I would always kind of help clients steer towards and say, look, right, we redo your welcome, your onboarding sequence, which is just when someone goes from brand new to seeing you full stop to becoming a customer. What's the journey that they're going through? So we'll unpick that and say, right, even down to the first conversation you have with them before they've signed up, how is that looking? How is that set up? Are you responsive? Are you booking calls in? Are you having a conversation face to face or on a Zoom or whatever? And then what happens next? Are you giving them the links to sign up? Are you giving them an explanation of how that process works? Are you being really clear with what's expected of them, what's involved, how your business runs, how you expect them to operate within that? So being really clear from the get-go is number one. Once you've done that and you've set out your new boundaries, what you want your business to look like, then we can go and nudge the old clients, the ones that are there, the ones that are loyal and probably paying way less than they should be paying and still milking all of the stuff from you. Those are the people you want to look to next, because those are the ones that are probably leaking your energy, the ones that you show up for. And I love all my clients, but Lord knows there are some that in my previous business I would dread turning up to the calls for, because they were always 20 minutes late, or they were always cancelling last minute, or they'd always pay late or whatever. Anybody that just isn't the perfect dreamy client for you, those tend to be the ones that are paying less, milking more out of you, making you feel a bit resentful. Those are the people I'd turn to next and say, here's some new terms and conditions. So we'd maybe map out some different terms and conditions, or just say, look, I've got a new welcome pack that I'm sending to all new clients. I'd love to send it to you as well, so that we can get really clear on what to expect moving forward as I make a few changes to my business. And so then you get to send them the same pack and say, this is the situation. I know there's been quite a lot of times when I've had to set boundaries on check-in times with my old clients. So in my fat loss business, we had video check-ins. So it would be, they'd send me a video and then I'd send them one back, just updating on the week. And I got to a point where those videos were starting to drag out to 20, 30 minutes long. And I was sitting there thinking, I've got 80 people to serve here. I'm not good at maths, but that's a long time to be watching a video for. And so I had to set this boundary and email my clients. And you know what I'm like, I'm people pleaser. So I was crapping my pants about the email back. And I was saying, I want to help you. Revisited my values, told them what they were, empowerment, authenticity, whatever, blah, 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 telling them what I really stood for as a business, and the way that I can continue to do that to the best of my ability, I need to change some things up. And so to make sure that everybody gets the best experience, I'm going to need you to have your check-ins between, 1 and 10 minutes rather than 10 to 20. And you'll be surprised when you're firm and fair and add a smiley face every so often, you'll be surprised at how many people are like, yeah, too right, good for you. They won't resent you for doing that. And if they do, or if they question it and argue it and say, I can't believe she's done that, they're not your people. They get to go and make room for someone who's going to respect your time, your energy, your expertise, and the value that you provide as a service. So yeah, I think it's all about communication and being able to say, this is the gig. you follow it, or, you know, I'm sure there are many other people out there that can help you, but maybe we're not the right fit. And those conversations are tricky too.
They are. I love that. And it's so true, because I remember when I did my very first like big price increase, I was absolutely petrified. I was like, I'm going to lose all my clients. This is just going to be the worst thing ever. And I think we lost about 5% max. And the amount of people who turned around and said, I knew you was too cheap. I was just like, seriously. Why was I worried? So yeah, it was best thing I ever did. And now I tell our clients to do those things as well, and not to be scared, not to put it off. You are worth charging more, because 9 times out of 10 we do not charge enough, do we?
And that's it. It goes back to that self-worth. I don't believe I'm capable of charging that much. I don't deserve to charge that much. Who am I to be someone that gets paid fairly for what I offer? And it's especially the coaches I work with, it's largely the like mindset coaches or transformation coaches. So whether it's like growth mindset, any sort of improving people's lives. So you literally change someone's life for a living, and you're going to charge 150 quid for it? No, ma'am. Like, are you joking? But because they're too scared to do it, they never do. They never see that actually people will pay if you can communicate the value and you deliver a great service, which is overlooked by most people that, you know, add a 0 to the price tag. But if you really care about what you do and you do it well, yeah, of course you can charge for that. And I think that you only need one yes to gain that confidence. But I think until you get to that point, you're always going to sit and go, oh God, no, I could never charge that much. I don't deserve to do that. And it's not about, you know, milking people for money. I know people in my industry all the time say just add a 0 to the price tag. No. However, charge what you're worth. And if that means adding a 0, then that means adding a 0. But you charge what you're worth. And the key is being able to stand behind it. Like I said earlier, it's like being able to say, yeah, I'm worth that. Yeah. If you can say, yeah, I'm worth that to £150, great. You start there and we increase over time. But I think a big thing behind that is when you aren't charging a lot, you know, say a coach that charges £150 versus a £250 coach, there's £100 difference there. But the quality of client you will get at £150 tends to be anyone that's paid me less than what it should be, has been flakier, has not been as invested, has probably dropped off quickly, or has been looking for a quick fix that they weren't going to get because they thought, oh, I'll just pay the money and I'll get what I want. The people that pay more, they've already more invested in themselves. It's like, is it Tony Robbins? This is years ago that I heard this, but Tony Robbins probably charges way more than this now. But he charges £1 million for a consultation, not because it's worth £1 million, but because you are sure as shit going to listen to every single word he says, and you are going to implement every single thing he tells you to do. And therefore it is worth £1 million because you're going to do it. And then you're going to get results from it, and it's going to snowball. And I think that's really interesting when we talk about quality of the clients that you've got. It's like you want people that are really invested in you. You want people that are going to value what you are doing here. And if they don't value it, they're not worth being in your world anyway. Let them, you know, go to somebody else and probably realize that you were probably the person they should have gone to in the first place 6 months later. And in the meantime, you get to work with someone who is going to value what you've got to say, who is going to really get the most out of your experience working together. And so, yeah, I think charging more is a very tricky hurdle to overcome, but a necessary one if you want to start building a business that you're not resentful of.
Exactly. It's a big part of that, building a business you love, isn't it? Because if you don't charge enough, it's going to create issues, which means that you're not going to enjoy what you do. So it's just going to have that knock-on effect, isn't it? And I certainly found that. So, yeah, you just need to... But again, you need to have that self-belief and confidence to charge what you're worth in the first place, don't you? It's a bit of a cycle, but once you break it, you're on the right direction.
That's why I couple mindset in so much with what I do, because every single part of building a business is mindset related. And you can argue me to high heavens on that, and I will fight back forever because, you know, you could I don't know, even that, like charging more, it's like if you're not really behind it, your sales calls are gonna suck and your marketing is gonna go downhill and you're not really gonna be selling what you're doing to your people because you're not really gonna be behind it. So you're gonna feel like you're conning people. If you don't think you're worth it, you're gonna not feel like you can actually show up and talk about it. You're going to be a bit wavery on like, oh, actually, can I get those results? I'm not really sure. I don't really know. And it's like, my motto is kind of, if every single person that comes into your world is saying yes, you're probably too cheap. If every single person you speak to is like, yeah, no brainer, easy, I'm in, it's probably too cheap. And you might actually be turning a lot of people away without knowing it because you're too cheap. Like I probably wouldn't pay, if I was going to get a fat loss coach, I wouldn't pay anything less than £250 because in my experience, anyone who charges less than that tends to not put in the service and the hours. And that's so not true because so many of my clients start on 120 odd pounds. And I'm like, bruh, what? How are you earning a living right now doing that? And so I think there's people that slip through the cracks and still charge less. But I think you've got to charge the quality. Like, you know, if I bought a pair of Primark leggings, I use this analogy all the time, but if I bought a pair of Primark leggings, I'm not going to care about them. I don't mind if I, you know, rip them or get mud on them or whatever. But my Lululemons, whew, they get their own little section in my wardrobe. Like they get treated with care and pride. And I would never dare go into nature. Do you know what I mean? I'm very protective of those leggings. It's because those are £100 and the Primark ones are 10. But I value the £100 leggings so much more and I'm going to care for them so much more. And so I think, yeah, charging your worth is so important, but we don't do it ever.
No, we don't. I love that analogy.
Honestly, it's so perfect because it is true. Like you're going to care for that. It's like when you buy a sassy handbag and you're like, it's never seeing the light of day. I'm never going to use the handbag.
It's just so I know I've got it.
Oh God, that is so true. I'm just thinking of the handbag I have in my cupboard that I never use.
Exactly that. It's like you don't want to get it. You don't want to put anything in it. You're too scared to do anything with it. But you are like you respect that handbag.
Oh yes.
I don't have a handbag. Maybe it's my new investment. Maybe that's what I should go with next.
I think so. I think you'd suit it.
Thanks.
Maybe like a nice kind of beige mulberry number is your gig.
Mm.
He's like, what's that? Straight over the head.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah,
We know. That's all that matters.
I don't know what they are, but I have to. I do know what a mulberry handbag is, funny enough. I shouldn't do, but I do.
No, I like
you
it.
have a
Good.
wife. Of course you're going to know.
She doesn't have a mulberry handbag.
Only because you've never bought a one.
No, that's the next
I love
thing.
it.
No. Oh, no, now I feel terrible in life.
All right, next birthday.
I've never been bought one either, Danielle. It's fine. But I'm a strong, independent woman. I will buy my own one day.
Exactly that.
My wife's definitely that. So
You mentioned earlier, and I'm just going to circle right back towards the beginning when you talked about books. And I know you love books, and obviously you mentioned you've got a massive bookshelf there. When it comes to mindset, it's all well and good people talking to you and telling you stuff, but sometimes you need to read it in black and white, don't you? So anyone who struggles with mindset, what books would you recommend that they go and have a look at?
So the one that I recommend time and time again, and I think will forever be my number one, is a book called The Happiness Trap by Russ Harris. It's blue if you care and you want to go and search it, but it's a blue book. And I think, or actually, I think it's maybe a different color now. But anyway, Google it. The Happiness Trap by Russ Harris. It's all about acceptance and commitment therapy, so ACT, and it is incredible for being able to shift the way you view the world. So shift the lens through which you view the world. And so I think so many of us feel very, the world is against me. Like, you know, if something goes wrong, especially in business, if something goes wrong, it's like, oh God, everything's falling apart. The world's against me. Everything sucks. It's terrible. So we're very negative with the way that we view not only ourselves, but the world around us. And this book is brilliant for being able to reframe those perspectives and reframe the way you see things, which I think is really important for being able to have more of that growth mindset. You know, instead of it being, I'm a failure and everything sucks, you get to go, okay, that launch wasn't the best that it could have been. I wonder why. Let's figure it out so that the next one's better, rather than, you know, saying, I'm going to give up and become a receptionist because nothing works for me and this launch flopped. You get to reframe it a little bit more. And it's obviously, it's not a business book in any way, shape or form, but it's one I go back to time and time again for mindset around how to continue progressing in business. So I love that one. But one thing I will say about books at the moment, like self-development books, I have actually put a pin in reading. And it was a soul spark of mine. I loved it. It was like my favorite thing to do. I was like, yes, I'm a mindset junkie. I'm going to read all the things. And actually last year I stopped myself because I've been doing therapy, love therapy. If you don't do it, you need to. I don't care who you are, do therapy. But I always said to her, I was like, I think my way through my feelings too much. And so instead of feeling the thing I'm feeling or moving through or unpicking it for myself, I'll read about it. I'll research it. Instead of sitting with my lack of belief about something or sitting through, I don't know, imposter syndrome, I'll download a book. I'll buy a book and I'll say, right, I'm going to be the queen of knowing all the things about imposter syndrome. And then I never actually move through it because I'm too busy thinking my way over it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I try and fast track the progress I want to make in a specific area, whether it's self-belief, confidence, whatever it is. I'll try and fast track it by doing all of the research on it so that I'm the best at that. I'm like the perfectionist of that mode. And I will skip over the part where we actually grow, the part where we have to move through the shit, you know, you like that. What's that thing that's like, you can't go over it, you can't go under it, you got to go through it.
Yep.
What is it? Bear hunt.
Yeah, the bear hunt.
Yeah, we're going on a bear hunt.
Exactly that. So it's like with anything to do with a perspective shift, a mindset shift, even just growth as a human in the world in general, you've got to go through the things to learn from them and to progress. And what I noticed I was doing is skipping over them, so because I learned everything about it instead. And then never actually learning the lessons I needed to learn for myself. I just read about them and I was like, that's what it should feel like to overcome it. Cool. And then I wouldn't ever actually overcome it and move through it. And so I actually stopped reading books last year because I was like, no, we've got to go through it. We've got to feel the feels right now. But one of my clients bought me a book called The Mountain Is You. And it's all about self-sabotage. And so that's the next book on my list. So I'll report back and let you know.
I'm writing all these down.
Yeah, you should. I'll send you a full list later on.
Love it. I will link, especially that happiness trap. I'm going to link that in the show notes because I'm sure I bought it because I heard you talk about it before actually. And I should have known the answer when I asked you for recommendations, silly me. But I haven't read it yet and I want to. So
it is brilliant. I think there's a couple that like I have recommended in the past. Like there's one called You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero.
That I have got.
Yeah. And and that was, do you know what? That was the first, this sounds awful, but that was the first book I ever read. And it was maybe 2 years. I didn't read until, maybe it was even early last year. I think the first book I ever read, and I'm talking ever, like, aside from Biff, Chip and Kipper and the stuff that you read at school, like those books, that was the first book I ever actually picked up. Even like when I was doing like English at school, I didn't read the book, I'd watch the film, or I would make someone else write the essay for me. I didn't ever actually read. And so I picked this book up completely on a whim. I was just like, why not? I'll start trying to be, you know, the bougie gal that reads books. And so I read this book and it's very on the border of like fluffy in terms of like manifestation and that sort of stuff. And that's not, I mean, we could talk for hours about my thoughts on that, but we won't. But it was just enough of the normal shifting your perspective about yourself and just a little sprinkle of the manifestation stuff that I could really get on board with. And so I do really rate that book as a way to get into self-development. I always say just take it with a pinch of salt if you have a naturally very negative perspective on yourself and life, because that was the point I was at when I read that book. And I very much took it with a pinch of salt and said, okay, well, I don't quite believe that. However, I'm going to take the principles and apply them and twist them to work for me. I think that's the key with everything you read. You've got to take it with a pinch of salt, because it's only ever like one person's perspective. Despite it might, it could be super science backed, it could be full of research, but you've always just got to take it with a pinch of salt and say, okay, great, how can I apply this to me in a way that feels authentic to me?
Yeah, no, definitely. I know I've had a lot of training in the past from various different people, and I remember saying to someone once, I loved your book or whatever it was. I can't remember, it might have been videos or something, and I said, I get what you're saying. I said, it doesn't really apply to me, but I can apply it to me to make it feel authentic for me. Yeah. And they said it was one of the best compliments they'd ever had. I was just like, oh, okay. There's me thinking I'm probably going to offend them, but they did. And I think that is the key, isn't it? It's like whenever you do any of these trainings, read a book, watch a webinar, listen to a podcast, you've got to take what feels authentic to you and implement it in that authentic way, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, that's their advice. And you are you. You're not them.
Yeah, and this is what I do really often with I know you did Selling Without the Ick, didn't you? And it's I speak about this so largely when it comes to speaking to your people and your audience. It's like speaking to your ideal client is so important, because you get to be really specific, and to the point where you are leaving people out specific. But those people that really needed to hear that message will take what they needed from that and apply it to them. And so if you're saying, I don't know, you're talking about being so busy. Being so busy is such a fluffy term. Everyone's busy. Do you know what I mean? We're all busy. What are your people busy doing? So one of my clients is saying, oh, well, I coach mums. And so I said, okay, your people can't even go to the toilet without a little one knocking on the door. I can't relate to that. I don't have responsibilities. Are you joking? I'm not like, do you know what I mean? I'm totally on my own. I don't mind. But I can totally relate to that, because I couldn't go out for dinner without a client calling me or messaging me. And so I can always take what you've said and apply it to myself, and that's on me to do. But if you're not really, if I'd have just said you're busy, that person wouldn't have heard it anyway. That person would be like, yeah, I'm busy, bye. And so I think being really specific with your marketing as a business owner, and even just in life, like being really specific with what you've got to say and knowing exactly what you're saying to who, people, like you said, will take what they need from it, and you'll reach so many more people because they can apply it to what works for them. Whereas if you get really generalized with what you're saying, people, it just falls on deaf ears all the time. So yeah, I think that's really important as well in business, is to be able to really speak to your people.
Definitely. And I could carry on chatting for absolutely hours, but I'm putting my firm hat on now.
Love it.
We're going to wrap things up. So we have a bit of a thing with a closing question. If you wasn't running your business and helping people to love their businesses, what would you be doing?
Oh, well, immediately I would... No, do you know what I was going to say? Be Beyonce's backup dancer.
Love it.
But that's a lie. I'd be Beyonce. Do you know what I mean? I'm not a dancer. But no, that's always a little passion of mine. I used to want to be a dancer so badly. But it's definitely not my world now. If I wasn't doing business coaching, it's a tricky one, because watch me be a chef in like 10 years time anyway. I think this is the thing, because I'm so into, I've really learned over the last year or two to just go with my gut on things and really lean into what feels really aligned with who I want to be, where I want to go, and what I want to share with the world. That I honestly do feel like the world is my oyster. Like I could just do whatever I really wanted to. I was good at, you know what I mean? I'm great at everything first time. I've got great beginner's luck. So I don't know. I think it would still, it'd have to be something where do you know what I'd love? I'm dotting around all over the place. I'm like, do you know what I'd love? I would love, and it's kind of similar vibes anyway, but I've always loved the idea of being a public speaker, which is most people's worst nightmare, right? Love it, me. I'm like, get me on stage in any capacity and I'll boss it. Like, if it's in tap shoes and a top hat, I'll boss it. If it's with a microphone talking to an audience about anything, I'll do it. Like, I think it's got to be something to do with performance in some way, like being on stage and just pissing about.
I can totally see that, though. Anyone listening and needs a speaker, Jo's your lady.
Love it. I still get so nervous, but as soon as I get into it, I'm like, I did a talk for someone last year on confidence, and I'd written 5 bullet points on a document, and that was it. And I was thinking, shit, I've got 45 minutes to waffle on 5 bullet points that were like about 3 words in each bullet point. And I was really panicking backstage. I was like, I'm not going to go on. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And I went on stage, and about 30 seconds in, I'd cracked up someone laughed at a joke I'd made, and I was like, I'm in. I've got it. And I spoke for the 45 minutes off of these 5 bullet points, and it was breezy. I was like, yeah, sound. Yeah, they're definitely something on a stage would be mine. What would you? Has anyone ever asked you what yours would be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are they?
Yeah,
Well, mine was I would have been in a military marching band.
Oh my God, which instrument?
Clarinet. And I nearly did. I was there. I went for like days with them and everything, and I was going to do it, and my mum was like, no.
Oh, there's still time.
Oh, no, not now. Not now. I have other dreams now. But yeah, that would have been it. If I hadn't gone down this route, I think that would have been it.
Wow. What about you, Daniel?
Yeah, well, mine's just terrible in comparison. Not necessarily. This isn't. I don't suppose it's necessarily what I would have chose to do, but I was going to university to become an osteopath. I was due to start that, and a month before I went, I dropped out, and because we had this. Last week in school, we had this insight into management course, and someone on the insight into management course offered me a job, so I took it and dropped out. So I probably would be an osteopath if I didn't go down this route. However, it probably wouldn't be what thing I would want to do most.
Not a dream. Do you know what's funny? I am talking of university, and I said I went to uni for about 3 months. When I got into uni, I actually been accepted for 2 different courses, which is like, it was a glitch in the system. I wasn't allowed. I shouldn't have been able to do the dance degree I was going for. And so basically you have to have ridiculously high UCAS points for it because it's so popular. So they like want you to have A stars, and I got a B, an E and a D at uni at A level because I just didn't show up. And so I had the opportunity instead to choose a different career path. And so I said, you know what? I love CSI. I love criminal minds. I was like, I'm going to do forensics. And I got accepted into Bedford University to do forensic investigation. Yeah. And isn't it funny how, like, if the glitch hadn't have happened and I got accepted to dance as well, obviously I chose that because I thought, you can't be a 40-year-old dancer, but you probably could be a 40-year-old forensics. Wouldn't it be, like, I wouldn't be on this path. I wouldn't be here. I'd have been doing something within that sector. And I just think it's mad how life just creates these little paths for us, isn't it?
It does. Everything happens for a reason, I think.
Yeah. I could be like Dexter right now, being a blood spatter analyst / serial killer. So
yeah, I was going to say, maybe not. That's not the comparison.
You never know.
Mate, we'd have to hone your skills and I don't know, maybe not. Yeah.
I love how you went that to that. So quick.
You say though about everything happens for a reason. I do kind of think that. I'm reading a book at the moment called can't even remember what it's called. Fooled by Randomness, I think it's called, by Nicholas Taleb. And it is basically just about how everything is everything is random and there is no rhyme nor reason to it. It is literally random. So people that try and tell you that they can predict what's going to happen and things like this is specifically a little bit towards what I do more than anything else, but it does talk about applying it to wider life. People that tell you they can predict the future and how things are going to perform are wrong, because they can't. So
it's mad. I think because it's a really big thing with like manifestation, isn't it? That sort of idea that you can create your reality. And I think actually to some extent you can create your perception of reality, because you can decide whether something's gonna, you know, be the thing that derails you and makes you, spiral into failure, or you can decide to let it move you forward. And I think that's a really interesting conversation that we definitely don't have time to go into, but maybe part 2 we'll come back and we'll talk about that.
We will.
It's interesting. It is interesting.
It definitely is, though. Oh, cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really loved our chat. And as I said, I know I've been bossy pants, but I could have chatted for hours.
Thank you very much for having me.
Not a problem. Thank you very much for coming on. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode.
If you did, please like and subscribe, and we'd love to hear your feedback. So please do leave us a review or drop us a DM on our Instagram @Found a Life Podcast.
See you in the next episode.